Agostinho Neto was a towering figure in Angola's fight for independence. Born on September 17, 1922, in Bengo, Angola, Neto grew up under Portuguese colonial rule, where his people were marginalized and stripped of their rights. As a young man, he witnessed the harsh realities of colonial oppression, fueling his desire to see his country free from foreign domination. Neto's path to becoming a national hero began with education. He was a bright student, and his family, who valued education, ensured that he pursued it. In the 1940s, he went to Portugal to study medicine, enrolling in the University of Coimbra. However, his time in Europe opened his eyes to broader political movements, especially the wave of decolonization sweeping across Africa. While he trained to become a doctor, Neto also became deeply involved in anti-colonial activism. In Portugal, he met other African students and intellectuals who were also striving for independence for their homelands. It was during this time that he joined the Movimento Popular de Libertação de Angola, MPLA, a Marxist political organization dedicated to the liberation of Angola from Portuguese colonial rule. The MPLA would become the heart of the liberation struggle, and Neto would become its leading voice. Neto's political activism didn't go unnoticed by the Portuguese authorities. He openly criticized colonialism, denouncing the exploitation of African people and calling for self-determination. His passion and leadership made him a target for the colonial government. In 1951, he was arrested for his political activities, but imprisonment only strengthened his resolve. Neto was arrested several times during the 1950s and 1960s. His medical career was put on hold, but his commitment to Angola's freedom deepened. During these imprisonments, he wrote poetry that expressed the pain, struggle, and hope of the Angolan people. His poems became symbols of resistance, inspiring many to join the fight for liberation. One of his famous works, We Shall Return, speaks of the certainty of victory over colonial rule. After his final imprisonment in 1960, protests erupted across Angola, with students and activists demanding his release. The international community, especially in Africa, rallied behind him, recognizing his importance to Angola's liberation movement. His eventual release came as a victory not just for Neto, but for all Angolans who sought independence. In 1962, after his release, Neto escaped to exile, first to Morocco, then to Congo, where he continued to lead the MPLA. By this time, the struggle for Angolan independence had escalated into an armed conflict. The MPLA, along with other nationalist movements such as the FNLA, National Front for the Liberation of Angola, and UNITA, National Union for the Total Independence of Angola, began to wage guerrilla warfare against the Portuguese colonial forces. Neto emerged as the central figure in this liberation war. Under his leadership, the MPLA grew stronger and gained international support, particularly from the Soviet Union and Cuba. Despite the various factions fighting for control of the country, Neto's MPLA was seen as the most ideologically consistent and progressive, advocating for socialism, education, and the rights of the working class. In 1974, after years of brutal conflict, the Carnation Revolution in Portugal overthrew the dictatorship that had controlled the country for decades. This internal change in Portugal forced the Portuguese to re-evaluate their colonial policies, and they began to withdraw from Angola, recognizing that colonialism was no longer sustainable. On November 11, 1975, after more than a decade of struggle, Angola officially declared its independence from Portugal. Agostinho Neto became the country's first president, marking a historic victory for the Angolan people and the MPLA. However, the challenges were far from over. As president, Neto inherited a nation ravaged by war, with deep political divisions. The Angolan Civil War began almost immediately after independence, with the MPLA, FNLA, and UNITA factions fighting for control of the country. The conflict quickly drew in external forces, with the United States and South Africa supporting UNITA, while Cuba and the Soviet Union provided military assistance to the MPLA government. Despite the Civil War, Neto remained focused on his vision of a united and prosperous Angola. He implemented social and economic reforms aimed at improving healthcare, education, and infrastructure. His government promoted socialist principles, nationalizing key industries to reduce foreign control and empower the Angolan people. Neto also worked to strengthen ties with other African liberation movements, providing support to freedom fighters in Namibia, South Africa, and Zimbabwe. As Neto worked tirelessly to build his nation, he also battled health problems. In September 1979, while receiving medical treatment in Moscow, Agostinho Neto passed away from complications related to cancer. His death marked the end of an era, but his legacy as a leader of the Angolan Revolution and a symbol of African liberation endured. Legacy. Agostinho Neto is remembered as the father of Angolan independence, a poet, and a warrior who gave his life for the cause of his people. His leadership during the fight against colonialism inspired generations of Angolans and other Africans to fight for self-determination and freedom. Today, Neto's image stands tall in Angola, where he is honored as a national hero. Statues, streets, and universities bear his name, ensuring that the brave heart of Angola will never be forgotten. His vision of a free and united Angola continues to resonate, despite the long years of civil war that followed his death. Neto's belief in the power of the people, his commitment to social justice, and his dream of an independent Africa have made him one of the continent's most revered leaders. Agostinho Neto played a pivotal role in the liberation of Angola from Portuguese colonial rule, becoming the first president of the country. He was a revolutionary, a poet, and a political leader who used both his words and actions to inspire his people to fight for freedom. Neto led the MPLA during Angola's long struggle for independence, securing international support and achieving victory in 1975. His legacy is marked by his dedication to social justice, education, and the empowerment of the Angolan people, leaving an indelible mark on African history. Hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to hit the like button,